Welcome back to Scotomaville. This is Volume 3, Episode 2 on Roped Up. This is a very interesting episode. It's been very challenging. In fact, there's a definition of genius which goes something like being able to explain complex things in simple terms. I first wrote my notes for this episode and then rewrote them in a concept and then distilled that into an image and further into a mind map and then into a full visual for the episode. A quick production injection, a sidebar for those of you tracking multi-levels of play here. I've simplified it now, waking up on day 4 of production to a single index card. You'll understand later. And that then simplified further, which becomes part of the prelude worksheet. You see, you don't always know where you're going, but you have to trust in the process. Andrew. This is the 138th video to my YouTube channel. 65,000 views. And I'm a little nervous. I'm asking myself, Daniel, why? Well, because for the very first time, I don't have an audience vaguely out there. Those of you in the room right now watching, I'm imagining that in the future. And I want to use some wisdom that was given to me by a dear friend, John Smart, that I should invest those words in building a bridge from me to you. Jim Rohn said that he who listens well takes notes. If you pull out the worksheet, you'll notice that I've noted and drawn much of the concepts of this episode so that half of your work of listening is already done. You see, roped up is what you do to keep yourself safe if you're crossing a glacier so you don't fall into a crevasse and disappear forever. Instead, you'll tug on hopefully more than one person, a few people, and they'll be able to arrest your fall. And if you're roped in, well, you're being convinced, drug into something. The outcome I wish for this episode is for conversation about you being roped up with others, not going it alone, not being isolated. And you know what that's like. We've had a few years of that mandate on us. I also don't want you to be roped in. We're given cognitive architecture to be able to turn complex things into simple patterns and come to conclusions. But if we don't put in the effort, and if we don't use things like triangulation to confirm our own bias and conclusions, then we can often end up in a ditch, down a crevasse, at the end of our rope, so to speak. This episode is on Roped Up, on self-authoring, on self-reflection video modeling, on the process of transformation by the renewing of our mind. In 2005, I set off across the United States. I cycled solo from coast to coast on the first of 3 cycling expeditions, and I experienced some pretty amazing things. I also found a real passion for exploration, for specifically learning why I did what I did, and more generally, why we do what we do. And Stuart Varney said that history is an excellent teacher if you're paying attention. And from Blaise Pascal, that if you should find someone who has gone where you would like to go, that you should follow in the way they began. Now, specifically, he doesn't say do what they did, but to follow in the way they began. Chart your own journey. Become aware, gain understanding, and exercise the discipline to turn the life you were handed into the one you desire. I believe you can follow in the way I began. And let me explain that by saying that I have chosen to rope up and follow Jordan Peterson as one of the men in my tribe that I've put together. You see, Jordan recently did a series on the book of Exodus, the second book in the Bible, and I really saw some things differently as a result of watching that series.
Turns out that a book is more durable than stone. It's more durable than a castle. It's more durable than an empire. You don't get away with anything. And so you might think you can bend the fabric of reality and that you can treat people instrumentally and that you can bow to the tyrant and violate your conscience without cost. You will pay the piper. It's going to call you out of that slavery into freedom, even if that pulls you into the desert.
God is ethic-centered, not ethnic-centered.
Well, do you want the Pharaoh on your side or do you want God on your side? That's kind of the question.
Let me set the greater picture for you. Let's step back a little and take a larger view of history. Welcome back to Scotomaville, all right? I am looking forward to sharing this challenge with you. In order to lose your blind spots, you have to find out where you're blind. In order to do that, it really helps if you can experience it firsthand, where you go from thinking you're got it all together, and the first thing you discover is, oh, what the hey? I don't know what? And then you get all the emotional cascade from your, all that stuff that's locked up in there gets going in your amygdala and fires up all the adrenaline, and the fight or flight gets going, and you get frustrated, or whatever your pattern is, that all gets triggered. In the second book of the Bible, the nation of Israel lived dependent on Pharaoh, who exercised his superpower of storytelling to keep everyone in line. You see, escaping tyranny is what the nation of Israel did under Pharaoh's mandates. Am I speaking to some current events to you? In order for Israel to get out under that dependence, they had to go to the desert. They wandered, lost, angry, dependent on God's provision of manna. They began grumbling, complaining, triggering, having all kinds of arguments. And they tried to invoke Moses to be their new leader. Jethro came to Moses and said, no. Don't put us back into slavery, in my words. Help the people recognize their responsibility for leading themselves out of this desert by organizing, by learning to make decisions, by becoming aware, gaining understanding it through insight, and having the discipline to make hard decisions. And he organized a structure, and they developed a language by which they could gain self-confidence and experience, and through that face the hardships and battles in order for them to get to the promised land. You see, I've been telling a story about climbing your personal Everest. I've been giving you an example about how to take ideas, turn them into experiences, reinterpret them, and advance on the life you want to have, the design you have before you. One of the fundamental aspects of a successful expedition, which is a journey with a purpose, is to take on the personal responsibility for awareness, to recognize tyranny, to recognize when you are dependent and following strictly in the decisions and mandates of another, and you're afraid of stepping out, of not being in a line and whack-a-mole, if you will. You see, escaping tyranny, getting out from Pharaoh's thumb, requires confrontation. And you're going to leave that confrontation to go into situations that scare you. The self-actualization, as Maslow would say. And all over this worksheet are phrases and new words for you. They're part of the lexicon, if you will, that Seth Godin tells us as leaders to empower people with a common language, the ability to share ideas and solve problems.
The longtime cyclist got the idea after his wife was injured in a bad car crash. She was an entrepreneur, and he's riding in honor of her.
Through peer support and mentoring, they all sort of network together and share their business ideas and help each other in business, and just incredible things are coming out of it. So we're trying to bring it out of the Texas South area and up across the northern U.S.
Comp started his journey in Seattle just after Father's Day. He figures if he travels 80 to 100 miles a day, he'll reach the East Coast by the end of August.
Bricolage, charrette, scotoma, okay, all of these words that I want to impart to you. So this is what the journey that Israel took in Exodus was, to become aware, the first part of, as in the first book, as I do with the first 15 chapters of Scotomaville, is to give you some mental tools of awareness and understanding about both your psychology and your physiology, and how to sort out the chaos of the challenges that you have. And then I demonstrate ways of using those tools. And my choice to be roped in, no, to leave having been roped in, and to be roped up with a tribe that I have chosen that can instruct me, as I'm saying with Exodus. You see, Pharaoh's storytelling and today's storytelling.
There's 22 vets committing suicide every month.
I think it's down to 17 now.
Thank you.
17 a day.
I'm glad to hear that.
And tomorrow's storytelling with AI is a superpower. And the responsibility I'm challenging you with is to be aware, understand, and use your choices to tell your own story, to game your own thinking, to be transformed in your thinking by the choices of who you're roped up with. I have chosen dozens of mentors over the decades I've had, and each of them have left footprints in my mind. That's how you begin your way out. Incremental change, recognizing things like food and the content that you consume, hear, and how you speak, and what you're hearing from others that you surround yourself with, and choosing piece by piece to put those aside and embrace the uncomfortable learning curve, to surround yourself with influence instead of isolation. Our Airstream has been in most of our episodes. It's been sort of the centerpiece, but it's not the focus. Let's go inside and let me give you a mind map you'll see it on the worksheet in front of you, that you can remember the way out of tyranny, the way through the desert, and the way up your personal Everest by looking at the arrangements of our quarters, our office, home, and our set. Welcome to our Airstream, our home and office, the dinette, kitchen, where, just like a scotoma, the optic nerve exits station 1. 2, where the fire comes on. Storage ingredients. And fridge. Small library. This is all zone 1. Here there's a curtain, and at the other end is another curtain that forms zone 2. And this has our clothing storage. Yeah, ladies, that's all of it. It has our shower, the toilet, sink, mirror for affirmations, for exiting, and we go from zone 1 to zone 2 when we want to clean up, and we get feedback. Things we prepare out here end up being dumped here. Observation here helps modify what goes on in zone 1. We celebrate and have a conversation about the things and come back and clean up. Zone 3 has multi-purposes. It's recreation, restoration, reflection, my table that I document my notes early in the morning of insights, and during the day I am doing production here. So zone 3 is kind of getting out of the desert. And Angelina's side table is a nightlight I had with my children when they were growing up. And here's Angelina's son Chris, who, yeah, that's a big story. It's 30 feet end to end. But going between different zones and being aware of what happens in those zones, and during those periods, looking back in history, looking forward to the future, you can connect up all sorts of ideas, things to learn, things to change, things to aim for. And that is what the process of transforming by the renewal of your mind. Absolutely fabulous journey. An expedition, right? A journey with a purpose. Let me finish with 4 of my points that came to mind in my diffuse time in zone 3. Number 1, the idea of being roped up is being interconnected. It's committing to your journey by following someone that's been where you want to be, and bringing with you someone who's willing to commit. Number 2, this journey is incremental, and it happens over time. You see, 5 years ago, Angelina and I thought we were purchasing a piece of land, and so I did the architecture, I did all of the work on the land, trimming, cleaning, piling up lots of wood. Well, it turns out that was preparation for what Garth Hardin needed this winter. Most welcome. And so we were able to work together to get his winter's supply of wood in order. My abundance became his supply. Well, at the same time, our need, Angelina and I, was met through Mike Knopf and Point Man International Ministries, and out of their abundance helped us gain insight, direction, wisdom, warning, provision, all of that. You're going to run out of money, Daniel, because you need to meet Mike. Right? And Mike needs to be encouraged. So there's a scotoma, and that's a copy of the book, if you will.
Okay.
But I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to help you write the rest of your book because it needs to be done. You see, Roped Up has tangible assets, and over time, Chris didn't need to pass away. You can be touched by his story. You can learn from his faults, the things he would want you to know. You see, we have an influence that spans more than our time here on earth. Mind mapping is the idea of being able to learn something new by associating pieces that you need to learn with places you already know. Form a mental picture with a location around your home, with a zone, a place, an item, and form a picture of that grapefruit at the scotoma with that egg or pancake in the fire. That's mind mapping, and that's how memory champions can remember long series of numbers in phone books, etc. And finally, committing to your expedition. You see, the journey from Tyranny through that desert and up your personal Everest requires full commitment. It requires you becoming aware of the things that bother you and the points at which you trigger and melt down and have episodes in the desert. And it means asking for help by being roped up so you can get up your personal Everest.
That is what I'm trying to avoid. Jesus, man. It just does not seem possible.
You can become aware of as you go about your normal day. Noises, frustrations, opportunities to speak wisdom and warning.
Okay?
Try this one on for size. Bricolage, charrette, out of Scotomaville. And now I want to invite you to have that conversation. And I want you to absolutely get your butt out of Scotomaville. Thanks for watching. Look forward to hearing your feedback, and I'll see you next episode.